Welcome everyone to the Hired in Michigan Career Institute Resume Writing Workshop. We hope that you are enjoying the career fair event that is taking place today. This workshop is going to help you to write a better resume, so please get your pen and paper out. If you do not have any pen and paper available, you are welcome to watch the presentation over again today. Again, this is the Hired in Michigan Career Institute Resume Writing Workshop. Alrighty, let's get right into it. Well, welcome to the live stream, Improving Your Resume with Practical Strategies, and this is hosted by the Grow with Google on Air. Grow with Google helps people grow their skills, careers, and business by offering free digital skills training and tools. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is CJ Eason. I am the Community Outreach Director here for Hired in Michigan. I am so excited that you are here with us today, and I'm so excited that you're interested in improving your resume. So today we're going to review some strategies for making your resume more effective and to avoid major pitfalls that can easily happen to candidates when they are writing a resume. And together we will review a lot of examples and give you some practical tips on how to improve your resume and make the process a lot easier. And in this workshop, I'm going to work with you to create the best resume that you can create for yourself. And we want this to be helpful for you and as easy as possible for you as well, okay? And if you don't get all the answers that you are looking for, you can post your questions and we will reply to them as well, or you can email us your resume and you will be able to get answers to those questions as well. We'll provide an email address at the end. So let's now begin. We're here today to talk about your resume. And the first thing, we will observe some resumes and look at exactly some mistakes and look at some different strategies that individuals make as well. Then we'll focus on 4 strategies that you can use to make your resume even better. And at the end of this session, you'll have a checklist of strategies that you can then apply to make your resume more attractive to hiring managers. So let's take a minute to think about the purpose of a resume. How many times on average do you think an employer spends looking at a resume? Some people say 5 minutes, some people say 10 minutes, or even as much as 30 minutes. We often assume that employers will read our resume from top to bottom, but that is rarely the case. Are you surprised to know that most recruiters and employers only spend about 6 to 10 seconds looking at a resume? Yes, that's absolutely correct. And there's a reason for that because there's so many candidates that are looking for positions right now. The employers only have a little bit of time to spend looking at each resume and making sure that it's an effective candidate that they're ready to reach out to. So here's a little challenge, okay? The challenge could easily take, this challenge could take about 3 minutes, but we're not going to take this much time, okay? So let's complete the challenge. Imagine for a moment that you are a hiring manager looking for someone to fill a position. You know what you're looking for, but you're busy. And there are millions of things that you need to do today. So now you're ready to start looking through a stack of resumes before your lunch break in 30 minutes. Now we will complete an activity together. Let's complete this right now to help you get a sense of how your resume should make a first impression. So let's begin the activity right now. First, we're going to look at sample job descriptions. Then I'm going to show you 6 examples of resumes. And you'll have about 7 seconds to look at each resume and process it. For each one, you'll see and write down one word that describes the resume and then decide with a quick yes or no if you'd like to spend more time reading that resume. Alrighty, are you ready to do so? Let's try this. Here's the job description, along with some of the skills that you might be looking for. read the job description aloud. Let's make sure that you understand exactly what the job description is. Keep this description in mind as you're reading the 6 resumes that I'm going to show you. You don't need to remember all the details. In fact, looking at the resumes quickly will help you mimic what hiring managers experience every single day. And the purpose is to look at the resume through the eyes of a hiring manager, not the eyes of a job seeker, okay? Remember, you're writing down one objective that describes the resume, plus a yes or no on whether or not you want to spend more time on the resume. Alrighty, so you read the job description? Alrighty, let's go. So, clear headings make it easy for employers to identify the different sections of your resume and narrow in on the important areas of them. It allows them to skim your resume more quickly. White space and a wide margin are important to give the resume reader's eyes a break. Oftentimes we reduce margin size and add more text when we are trying to fit all the information on one page. This can make it more difficult for employers to read, which could distract them from the actual content of your resume. This resume has a good amount of white space, which improves its readability. And you can see the white space and the wide margins. You'll probably notice that Asha doesn't have a lot of experience in sales. She created a skills section at the top of the resume, which can be helpful for employers to get a quick overview of her skills. But most of these skills aren't relevant to the sales representative position she has applied for. Be sure to build out an overview at the top of the resume that tailors your experience to the position you're seeking. Your experience section should include more details around how you acquired skills in your previous position, but make sure to highlight the skills that are most relevant to the job that you're applying for. The image shows a black and white resume with very little differential between header and subtext. It contains a lot of extra space and sparse details. What do you think about this resume? Sometimes your work experience isn't the only area of your resume where you can showcase the value of your accomplishments. Be creative. Think about certifications, awards, volunteer work, part-time jobs, and continuing education classes that make you more qualified for the position you're seeking, and includes those in your resume. You probably noted that Adam's resume doesn't include any details about the responsibilities or accomplishments at his previous job. Don't assume that the employer reading your resume will know exactly what you did at each of those jobs that you've had, or they'll know exactly what your job title is. You also don't want to miss any opportunities to highlight your successful projects, expanded responsibilities, and measurable accomplishments on your resume. This image shows a colorful resume, a headshot, and several playful fonts. There are a few different font types in this resume that we want to talk about for a minute, but the header used for each section are in simple, readable language. Select fonts and colors that are easy to read on your resume. You may have found some of the colors in this resume distracting. Depending on your industry, it may be acceptable for you to use accent colors. However, too many different colors can be a distraction for employers. Also, some of the font types in this resume are difficult to read. It is best to stick to one easy readable font through the resume, okay? Depending on the geographic location, a photo included in your resume may or may not be a standard practice. Some parts of South Africa, Asia, and Europe requires candidates to include a photo on their resume. Even if Titus was applying for a job in one of those regions, he should include something more professional. This is not a professional photo. You want to be sure your face is easily seen, the photo is a color, and you are wearing professional clothing. Okay, so remember that if you do decide to include a photo. You may have also found that some typos in the resume as well. So make sure you take the time to review your resume for grammatical errors and typos to show employers that you pay attention to details. This image shows a black and white resume with crowded text and very little extra space. Always select a font that is simple and easy to read. While Jason may have selected a legible font type, the lack of white space makes the resume almost entirely unable to read. There's no break for the eyes for the employer. This is a big problem and it can be overwhelming and distracting. You are likely multi-talented and different experience and interests, so it's important to only include details that are relevant to the position that you are applying for. This is a mistake that many candidates make. They add everything that they have onto their resume and then it's not relevant to the position that they're applying for. If you're applying for a position in customer service, but all of your experience was working in a kitchen as a chef, then that would not be relevant for a company that is hiring someone in customer service. So focus on the experience that you have that's related to the position. Oftentimes, it is necessary to include additional links to social media profiles or websites. That's only if it's relevant. The exception may be if you're applying for a position in social media management and you want to showcase your expertise with your strong social media background, or if you're a designer or artist and you have a website that can showcase your work as an artist, then you can add those type of links. Most noticeably challenging with this resume is how difficult it is to read. Too much information or crowded text can discourage an employer from reading the rest of your resume. So keep it simple. This image shows a clearly formatted resume with plain text, navy blue headings, and bullet details. Lanaya's detailed summary at the top of her resume makes it easy to quickly review the most important details of her experience. When you only have 6 to 10 seconds for an employer to review your resume, it is very important for you to make it easy for them to understand exactly what type of position you are seeking. You may notice that the details around each of Lanaya's positions follows a specific pattern. These bullet points start with a specific action verb and are followed by measurable details. We will talk about measurable skills later in this broadcast, okay? Later in this workshop, we will talk about how to apply measurable skills and specific skills that are related to the position that you are applying for. You may have found the most distracting details of this resume to be the font choice. It is distracting and difficult to read. Oftentimes, you will hold different positions during your time at one company. Instead of showcasing these positions as two separate jobs, you can combine them together, which will make it easier and also show that you were promoted or that you changed responsibilities. The first image shows a creative resume this image shows a creative resume with red text, a headshot, and an obvious background, okay? You saw an example of a photo on a resume a few slides back. But this image lacked professionalism. In this case, Abraham has included a clear photo squared up to the camera with a smile on his face. While it may not be appropriate to include a photo, this one would be suitable for an applicant in a region where photos on resumes are a standard practice. Abraham's resume is slightly more creative in nature, but this is true for his background as a graphic and web designer. While he might not be a good fit for a sales representative role, his resume is clear and has a clear layout and plenty of white space. While Abraham's resume is easy to read, there are some obvious typos and errors that can be distracting. You may have noticed not all of the filler text was removed in the skills section. So always proofread your resume. Right, so you've noticed several pitfalls that hiring managers often see as they review resumes. Some things that distract your resume. The resume is too sparse or doesn't have enough information, or on the other side, it's crowded and hard to understand, has distracting text or fonts, or has multiple errors. So we can definitely identify with what the problems are, and we can start to remove some of those errors in our own resume. But how do you build a good resume? How do you make it more readable and understandable for companies? We're going to get into that. So don't forget to remove the sparse information, crowded text, things of that sort. Okay, distracting typos, multiple errors on your resume. And again, if you have a photo, make sure it is a professional photo and make sure that it's appropriate for that industry. While there is no right way to write a resume, there are many different resume styles and formats that might be appropriate for the job you're applying for. Today, we will focus on 4 key things you can do to strengthen your resume. Choose a professional format. Highlight your skills and accomplishments. Use measurable examples and measurable details. And finally, tailor your resume to fit the specific job description. Alrighty, so those are the 4 things that we're going to focus on right now. Number 1, choose a professional format. Depending on the job you're applying for, you may want to create a more traditional resume, or for a more creative field, you may decide to choose a more creative. This image on the left shows a traditional format, which is mostly black and white, and the image on the right shows a creative format with more colors and images. The main thing to remember is that your resume should be professional, organized, and easy to read. There are some key attributes to employers when creating your resume. Be sure to include wide margins and lots of white space. White space is the space on the page that isn't filled with text or graphics. It gives the reader's eyes a rest. Remember that. Use simple, readable language, use clear headers, and choose an appropriate font. The image on the right shows a professional formatted resume with clear headings and plain font and wide margins. Now you may be thinking, but I don't know how to do all that. What if you don't have many skills, many design skills? Well, that's fine. Or maybe you don't feel like you're comfortable with formatting on your resume. You don't need any of these skills to create a professional resume. You can just choose from a variety of pre-built Google resume templates that have already been done for you. Templates are like a pattern as your guide. They provide some design elements and formatting that you can use as a starting point for your project. They also help you keep font styles, and they help you keep font sizes and styles consistent throughout your document. Google Docs also offers lots of free professional resume templates to get you started. The layout, font, and colors are different for each resume and for each template, but they all contain the same basic information that you'll need for your resume. Your contact information, your skills, your experience, and your education, as well as your accomplishments or projects you've completed. After you've selected a template, you can customize the document from there. To access these templates, sign into your Google account, click New, Google Docs, from a template, and choose a template you like. After the workshop, take a look at these templates and think about which one might work best for you. Some of these templates seem to lead themselves into certain industries. You may want to check with a colleague about standard styles in your field. For example, a creative person like a graphic designer might use a more creative resume template to show off their skills even before the interview. We won't go into each template today, but feel free to explore the templates that are available on the Google website. The graphic here shows the right shows that a laptop with a GIF demonstration on how to build your template gallery, and you can follow these steps. Okay, now that you've addressed what style resume to use, let's talk about the next strategy you can use to make your resume more professional, highlight your skills and accomplishment. Notice the highlight not listed. You need to include everything. You don't need to include everything on your resume, excuse me. Your resume is not a comprehensive list of the jobs that you've ever had or even a list of the things that you've been involved in for the last decade. Your goal is to showcase the skills and accomplishments that you have made that are relevant to the company that is hiring so that you make yourself more of a candidate for the position that you're applying for. So do not add every single position that you've ever had on your resume if it's not relevant to the company that you're applying for. Don't be afraid to eliminate jobs from your resume that are not relevant to the one you're applying for, okay? Your work experience list does not need to be exhaustive. It needs to highlight the skills and accomplishments you have that are relevant to the job that you're applying for today, okay? On the other hand, if you've done other activities like part-time or volunteer work that is closely related to the jobs you're applying for, you've used or developed skills that would likely be interesting or connected to the position that you're applying for, you can add those to your resume. If you need to account for the gaps in your work history, volunteer work can be a good source to show that you are active in developing your skills, even if you weren't employed. If you're starting a new career and haven't worked in the field before, examine all the job experience or life experience that you have and make a connection to your resume. Let's practice deciding which opportunities you might include on your resume and which you should eliminate. Imagine you are applying for a sales representative position that you saw earlier today, okay, in the earlier slides. Take 2 minutes to review each of these positions and write down which jobs you would include on your resume. Okay, so you have the jobs on the right and on the left, and you have the job description. Which would you not and why? Also consider what specific projects and measurable details you might include to show that the past experience is relevant to the job you're applying for. What you should or should not include in your resume is entirely subjective. Some people may have chosen to include babysitting, which others may think that it does not apply to a sales position. It depends on the skills you've used during the job and how you describe these skills afterwards. If you decide not to include some of the jobs or experiences that you've had on your resume, that's fine as well. The main point of this exercise is for you to determine what relatable skills that you have to this job description. Alrighty, so let's talk about some of the skills we could have pulled from each of these positions, okay? For the waitstaff position, you may have been tasked with upselling customers you were waiting on. Anything from telling them about desserts or suggesting specific condiments to their meal or accompaniments to their meal, and that is considered to be upselling. As a cashier, you're likely engaged with customers for the majority of the workday, a skill important to a sales representative. Let's say you've raised funds as part of volunteer work. This experience can be viewed as being very similar to that of a sales representative. As a bank teller, you likely had to learn the details of every product or service the bank offered. This was a very specific skill that is relatable to a sales representative. How about a freelance blogger? A freelance blogger's work could have required you to negotiate rates for your work with the publication or the client. Negotiation skills are very important in a sales representative position. So as you can see, all of these positions can be related to a sales representative position. Here's another way to use digital tools to help you organize information on your resume. Use digital documents to keep a running list of all the things you might consider under experience. That might include part-time and full-time jobs, side work you do around the neighborhood, clubs or organizations, your participation in those clubs and organizations, volunteer work you do, and many other things. You can update a digital document at any time from any device that is connected to the internet. That way, when you go to write or update your resume, you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what you did in your past. All you have to do is pull from the list. That's right. Now let's talk about the third strategy. Maybe you have many things to include in your resume, but don't know which one to emphasize. How do you make those connections and show the employer that you're the right person for the job? By using specific examples and measurable details in the description of your work experience to show that you have achieved what you have achieved and what you have accomplished. This is also called showing impact, which specifically have you done? What specifically have you done? What specific impact have you had with your coworkers, your team, or the company that you work with? Lots of people have words like innovative, organized, efficient, leader, and effective communicator on their resume. But how can you show these qualities instead of just using those phrases? One way is to use specific examples. Specific examples from the previous experience that you've had. Describe specific projects you've worked on, improvements you've made, processes you've developed, or goals you've obtained. Describe the quality of the work you've done in the past and show how it relates to what you can provide the employer at the new job that you're applying for. The second way is to use measurable details. Whenever possible, to quantify the work you have did. For example, you might say that you have increased sales at your current job. But what does that mean? Did you increase sales from the widget to 2 widgets a month or 1 widget a month, or from 1 widget to 1 million widgets? Show your impact in numbers if possible on your resume. This is also a great place to add any awards or recognitions that you've received on your employment, on your current employment or past employment. These show how many people have viewed your accomplishments. Let's put this into practice. I'm going to show you an example of work experience. For each example, list the kinds of measurable details and specific examples you might include on your resume. Feel free to mute this microphone if you feel like you want to ask a question. Just type it in and you can ask me that question as well. Alrighty, you ready? Think about how you would make these skills descriptions more specific. Using specific examples and measurable details, you can try rewriting at least one of these descriptions yourself on a piece of paper or a digital document. It's okay to make up the examples and details for now. Here's just one example of what your resume might look like once you've added these measurable details. Do you see? Let's try another example. How would you make these skills descriptions more specific using specific examples and measurable details? It's okay to make up the examples and details for now. Here are some ways you might rewrite the description of your volunteer experience to give hiring managers a better perception of the work that you've did. As you compare the original description of what you've did versus another way to describe what you've did as a volunteer. Looks better, right? I agree. Now our last strategy is tailor your resume for each job that you're applying for. Many businesses use screening software to narrow down the piles of resumes that they receive every single day. It's called an applicant tracking database. And an applicant tracking database is based upon keywords. So when an employer is looking for a certain candidate, they're going to type in the keywords that are relevant to the position that they're applying for, and they hope that your resume has those specific keywords on it. So when you create a resume for a particular job, you should incorporate as many of the keywords in your past experience and work history as possible that you see in the job description. When you describe your past experience using the same terms as the employer uses in their job description, you not only get through the screening process, but you will get closer to the attention of the hiring manager. Okay, so make sure that you link those keywords that are in the job description onto your resume as well. Let's take 2 minutes to reread the job description we used earlier. Jot down a few words from the job description that you would incorporate in your resume if you were applying for this position. Look at the description. Pay attention to the keywords. Think about the keywords that you would include in your resume. What are some of the words that you would incorporate in your resume? You might include words like responsible, motivated, manage sales cycle, identify sales needs, locate new markets, design and deliver sales presentations, preside over negotiations, build expertise, customer service goals. Pay attention to the action verbs that are included in the job description too. And this posting, look at this job description posting, and this posting, that includes identifying sales needs and delivering sales presentations. Incorporate those same action words when you describe your experience in your resume. For example, instead of saying that you sold some widgets then required, you achieved or you exceeded your individual sales goals. The action words that are in the description can help you shape the skills list for each job and include measurable details from your past work experience. That also helps your resume sound professional without sounding forced. So as you look at the description here, we have identified some of the action verbs from the job description you might want to incorporate in your resume. Look at those. We've highlighted those for you. Let's review four strategies in this workshop. Let's review the four strategies in this workshop. We began at looking at sample resumes to see what hiring managers look at. Then we examined four strategies for improving your own resume. Choose a professional format to achieve balance so that your resume doesn't look too crowded, too busy, or too empty. Use a template to help with formatting. Start with a resume template can help you. Highlight your skills and experience. Include only your most relevant and recent experience. Include specific examples and measurable details on your resume. Show your achievements and skills rather than mentioning them. Finally, tailor your resume to the job that you want. Do not include relevant information that is not relevant to the position that you're applying for. Use words from the job description to impress resume screening programs and employers. You can even use a checklist for revising your resume. Take a few minutes to think about what strategy you can use to improve your resume right now. There are many other digital tools that can help you with your job application process as well. We've already mentioned resume templates, but you can also use docs to help keep records and past experience and measurable details. This image shows a laptop that contains the Google Docs that lists work experience. This is a way for you to list your work experience so you don't have to think about what that work experience is. Use Google Sheets to track each step of your application process. This image here on the right shows a laptop featuring a Google Sheet. The sheet contains a spreadsheet tracker for a job search. Or create a digital portfolio in Google Slides. Each of these projects can be accessed anywhere from the Google Drive. They save automatically, so you don't have to worry about losing your work, even if your computer crashes, and you can share these documents to collaborate anywhere. At this point, we've given you several strategies and digital tips, so before we go, let's talk about the next step. This image at the bottom shows here on the right shows a laptop featuring a digital portfolio in Google Slides. The slides features images of speakers, cameras, sample photo of a coffee mug, and a hand working at the sound engineering board. The left sidebar shows an additional slide. We want you to leave this workshop with a clear sense of what you should do next. So here are a few ways to move forward. Review possible resume templates and choose which one suits your industry, experience, and style. Examine your current resume and find places to include specific examples and measurable details. Create a running list of experience that you can use to tailor your resume, and consider taking some workshops on g.co/grow on air. We introduced a lot of different training options in this workshop. To access it, to learn more about the different types of trainings that are available, you can go to the grow.google.com website. These courses help you to work, teach, and learn from anywhere. So you'll find information about training resources, small businesses, information resources for small businesses, job seekers and students, veterans and military families, educators, developers, and also startup businesses as well. As an added note, if you're interested in receiving a free resume critique from Hired in Michigan Career Institute, also a sample template of a resume, a sample resume writing template, and also resume writing tips from this workshop, email us your resume at resumetips@hiredinmichigan.com. Again, we will critique your resume for free. We will also provide you a sample resume template provided by Grow with Google, and also resume writing tips provided by Grow with Google. We thank you so much for watching this presentation today. Email us for your resume critique, sample resume template, and also resume writing tips at resumetips@hiredinmichigan.com. That's resumetips@hiredinmichigan.com. We thank you so much for participating in the resume writing workshop today. We look forward to receiving your resume.